Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Bhavik Vasa with us today. Bhavik is founder at GetVantage. He's helping emerging business grow through frictionless embedded finance. We're gonna uncover what that means. He's a 2X founder, BW 40 under 40, Fintech Asia 200 fellow, and a dad on duty. Very important. So he's in Mumbai. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. And this podcast is brought to you by podpire.com. Podpire is my podcasting business. If you want to start a podcast, you can go to podpire.com. We help you do so the AI way. We have a free ebook teaching you how to monetize on AdSense, lead generation, and sponsors. So go to podpire.com for that. Bhavik, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Fantastic, Charles. Thank you for having me. I love the fact that we're talking from two different parts of the world, and I think that's amazing. And a little bit about myself. I think, like you mentioned, the most important part was Dad on Duty. I think that's my most interesting startup creation, which I'm hands-on with. So that's 6.5-year-old daughter now. And so besides that, I do some work, built a few companies here and there. And I think what I would love to share with you is, we spoke about that I started my career in the US and in the Silicon Valley. But the funny thing and the anecdote is, Charles, I'm an accidental guy in financial services and fintech. Uh, I am no engineer by academic background. I am no degree in finance, so I'm not a CFA or a chartered accountant or any finance major. And here I am, stumbled into starting my career with Wells Fargo Bank, and fast forward, spent the last 15, 18 years now in the world of fintech. Yeah.
Love
Um,
it. And your first startup seems to be Radical Payments. You had a couple of jobs before that. So tell us about that one and how that one led to your entrepreneurial career.
yeah. So as as dated as this may sound, but when I started my journey in this sector, there was no fancy buzzword as fintech. Remember 2005, six, and we were hustling in the Bay Area, and so a small tech company that built all the prepaid card systems. So if you remember, you walk out of any of the grocery stores, Walmart, Safeways, you see these card racks of prepaid cards and uh, gift cards. That's how I really started my career in emerging payments, digital payments, and we do digital lending, etc. So Radical Payments was a first attempt at bringing a range of fintech and digital payments and digital lending to India. That's when I moved back to India, and so that emerged into and morphed into a business called It's Cash, which was the earliest business in fintech in India, a decade-long journey, built and scaled that. And this was days before, like I mentioned, fintech was a buzzword.
Right. And how is it to start fintech in India? I mean, you've been in the US yourself, spent time in California. How is it on a difficulty level to start a fintech in India vs in the US?
So, two-part answer to this. Uh, Flashback to 2010, 11. Oh, trust me, I call myself, crazy out of my head to have moved back to wanting to do a fintech, let alone a startup in India. That's how small the ecosystem was. I come from a family of businessmen, and we've always had entrepreneurship in the blood, but nobody knew the word startup in 2010, 11 in India, right? Very small ecosystem. We had a handful of VCs and angel investors. So, I thought I was patriotic, but I think it was more jingoism moving back to India. So, yes, crazy, crazy times. But fast forward to where I see myself building GetVantage now, uh, and there couldn't be a better time and place in the world to be a startup founder and building something new age. Yes, the market is difficult. Yes, regulatory wise, it's far different, but the potential and the mere opportunity that lies ahead is just magnanimous. And so Look, I say this: the first 10 years was just my hustle and struggle, and hopefully the next 10 is when I can really find the meaning of doing why I wanted to always be a startup founder.
And describe the financial landscape in India. Most people don't have bank accounts, right? So, what innovation, what value are you bringing to this market?
You know, as today as a fintech founder and operator out of an emerging market like India, we talk about AI and the Western world and America giving AI to the world, and that's the big buzz right now. But I'm so proud, Charles, sharing with everyone that India actually, disrupted digital payments, and we gave UPI to the world, unified payment interface, right? And today that's something that's being adopted by rest of the more mature economies. You know, what's interesting about emerging markets in India specifically is you get this opportunity with innovation to leapfrog a technology, right? Giving you a simple example. In India, we never, it was difficult to have landlines, and then we never had a car telephone, right, or car phones, and we straight jumped into mobile. And today we are the largest telecom or the mobile ready economy and country in the world. And so it's even with payments, we were always a cash economy, and with fintech and with this very interoperable protocol called the UPI, we were able to leapfrog that, and we are today a largely digital payments driven economy. And we are seeing that same opportunity where for a lot of years credit and financing for the small businesses was the toughest. I mean, imagine this, right? You're a traditional market, you're still developing country. Banks would only work with collaterals, right? If you wanted a financing or a loan for a small business, that's that opportunity that we are at the forefront of, to being able to take that leapfrog from a very traditional model to an AI driven, uh, frictionless financing and digital financing model.
Right. And what does GetVantage do exactly? What do you do for small businesses?
We are a completely AI first, data driven platform for digital financing for every small business.
Okay.
And
And are you the only one? Do you have competitors? And why is it essential to have platform like yours if I'm a founder in India?
um, so here's a little personal journey and story, right? uh, GetVantage was not in heart, hand to heart, and it was not a eureka moment idea. And Charles, I've been there. I've seen a successful exit in the past. I had to really find, and I took my time and sabbatical to really find what was that one purpose or a problem that I, as an operator in India specifically, faced a challenge. And here is what the challenge is. As startup economy grows in countries and emerging markets, yes, equity and venture capital is becoming a little more front and center, right? There's a little more availability of that. But that's it. There's no other alternative forms of funding and financing available, right? So you either give equity as a business, and you can keep raising equity money, and that's a rat race, and you keep going from valuation to valuation. Uh, but businesses need all forms of capital. And as a founder in India over the last decade, I faced that personal challenge. We'd raised a lot of equity money in our last business, but when we needed just small working capital, or we wanted growth capital, or marketing, or inventory money, banks would ask us for an arm, leg, and a collateral or a piece of land, right? And your digital first businesses, uh, all you have to offer for is your own performance and transaction and data, and the customer traction you have, the growing revenue you have. You can't really go by the traditional model of underwriting, and that's what traditionally incumbent banks and financial institutions have to offer in markets like India. So yes, uh, we are a growing economy, with very large aspirations to go from a 3 trillion economy to a 5 to a 7 trillion economy, and that's going to need a lot of credit. And so, this was really a clear thesis that this is, if India is going to be a consumption story, it's going to have and going to need a lot of fuel and growth capital. And at the same time, it was my own challenges as a founder, that how difficult it was to raise from traditional institutions. And we needed a more digital, frictionless way to be able to fund and finance these growing businesses.
Right. And how do you actually filter a business slash a founder that has potential via someone that will not pay back that money?
The complete stack is built on top of the India stack, which is where we now have digital identity and digital data locker. We have live GST and tax revenue data on companies. And the most important, we built our own APIs so that every small business, whether selling on marketplaces like Amazon or Flipkart or any e-commerce marketplace, or whether there are restaurants selling on food delivery platforms, we look at live traction and transaction history. So it's really this real-time data through the pipes that we've built that we can really assess the business's dynamic nature. What's their customer traction like? What's their trailing revenues in real time like? And that moves the model away from a traditional way of looking at last 3 years financial details or balance sheets of the business. That's dated data, right? Really looking at live data and live transaction volume and revenues of this business can we fund and finance this business. And the most important part is the ability for the business to now grow with this capital, but be able to pay off this from its future revenues and cash flows. And that's where the last piece of the fintech that we've built is, not only does the AI do the underwriting, prediction, uh, benchmark scoring, real time scoring for the business, but it also then is able to do live monitoring through the repayment cycle, because the repayments are a percentage of the digital revenues. So the business every day, as they get their revenues and the cash flows, they're paying off a small percentage without really putting pressure on their cash flows to pay once a month when they have to pay rent, electricity, etc. So it's really these monitoring modules with the AI, it's the early warning signals that we de-risk the model and really look at the performance of the business.
Right, and I believe you raised $36 million yourself with GetVantage. What was the plan behind that, and what's your philosophy on bootstrapping vs raising capital?
I think I think each business and each founder has to find its own unique identity. I don't think I'm going to use this platform to say never raise venture capital and equity money and only bootstrap. I think every business and every founder needs to understand what is the need for the business and what are they raising their money for. At GetVantage, we extensively talk about founders' financial toolkit. And I strongly believe every business needs all forms of capital. It's just that you have to really well understand what do you need the money for, right? And we've always raised our money. Look, we're in the business of financing, so our raw material and dry powder is capital. So we have to keep raising money so that we can provide. But that also is always a mix of equity and debt, right? It's the hybrid nature. And that's what I wanted to urge and probably use your platform to also be able to share with so many founders. Somewhere, Charles, over the years, it's become a little, and if I may use the word, sexier to just raise equity money and talk about fundraising, right? But we don't realize that that's the most expensive form of capital that a founder raises. And at the same time, uh, being able to understand at what phase for what utility are you raising, I think that's where the best answer lies. And we've also always been able to be very cognizant that we need to raise all our capital in different forms and shapes through different phases of our life cycle.
How did your life change since you had your daughter?
Oh, can I say changed completely? I think um, um, you know I strongly believe that what it did for me as a human being and an individual first was uh, it started making me understand that uh, there is something else out there that is bigger than me. And I think that was a huge transformation, right? It's not about oh, that I had to take care of this, or this is my responsibility or my duty. But I think what it made me very quickly realize is there's something bigger out there than me in terms of my own thinking, emotions, everything, because it brought out different facets of my personality that I didn't know exist. It's like you were saying, right? The best fun analogy is when you do cross training and when you work out, right? Sometimes you find muscles that ache the next day that you never knew existed in your body, and that's what I think being a parent really taught me, is that there were emotions, feelings, expressions, and aspects of myself that I didn't know existed before.
Right. And tell me about what you do outside of work to be a happier and also more productive human being. I heard you would dive sometimes. Any business lessons you can take from diving?
God is in the outdoors, Charles. I think one thing I've learned and experienced is that nature is the best teacher. There have been a lot of lows through this roller coaster journey of being operators and founders, um, and I think nature is the best teacher in a lot of ways. And you can just look at a few things, and nature will help you understand that everything we keep talking about, patience, control, calmness, it takes its own time. So for me, I'm an outdoor person. If I was not to be a founder, yes, absolutely, I would be diving in 360 days in a small remote island in the Maldives, or somewhere in the Indian Ocean. And it's not only sports like scuba diving or paragliding that I do. It's really where I found my meditation. I think meditation is different for each one. Um, some of these activities really teach me to be present in that moment. When I take off of a cliff, when I'm paragliding, I'm in that moment, right? I can't think about the past or the future. I have to think about the air, the conditions, and how I'm handling my glider then. And when you go underwater, and you start seeing the, the nature, the world is so much larger than you. We are a minuscule speck, and here we are, worried about our issues and our own small issues on a daily basis, or something breaking in the startup, and you realize there's a whole big world out there that just exists on its own, and we're not even a big speck of it. So that's my balancing. That's what realigns and recalibrates me, is the outdoors.
Right. And what are your top goals for this year? What do you want to accomplish?
Oh, certainly get some more dive time. If that's definitely on top of the agenda. I think no matter how much and how many years you go through, unfortunately, um, every new and how dynamically the world is moving ahead. We started GetVantage when we hit COVID, right? We are a COVID baby. We started in 2020. You know, from having a term sheet on 15th of March to the world shutting down on the 18th of March, right? Then building a startup in the early days through the lockdown and the COVID period. Goes 10 years of any experience of having built teams or building policies or work culture. And then suddenly you now start seeing the pace at which technology is evolving, right? Look, I don't even consider myself a tech expert anymore with the pace at change with which AI is moving and machine learning is moving. So in such a dynamic and pressured environment, I think as founders, it's getting far more difficult for us to dodge that imposter syndrome. So honest confession, um, every day feeling a little more balanced. The biggest goal is to be calmer and to uh, have the mental strength uh, to not worry too much about how quickly the world's changing, and will I, the FOMO that we all live with, right? Am I missing out? Am I not moving fast enough? That's only accelerated in the last few years, and that does take a mental toll. And so, yes, for me, putting my mental health is this year's top goal, at the front and center of it. And number two, of course, being able to spend a little more time with my daughter and the nature outdoors.
Which is mental health too, right? Spending
Absolutely,
time
it's
with kids and going outside. Do you have like a meditation practice, a physical activity practice on a daily basis when you cannot go dive on a daily
yeah,
basis?
yeah. So we're so again, sports is my form of meditation, and so I play. I'm from part of the world where cricket is big, and so I play a lot of cricket. We have morning nets or practice sessions on weekdays. We do evening matches, and I play at a club level. So, and I'm a wicket keeper, so it's about keeping attention, having reflexes. So that's my cheat hack to keep myself active, fit, and sane on a daily basis.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you, Bhavik?
I believe the best is I'm very active on LinkedIn. Bhavik Vasa at LinkedIn. I think I'm very active from a lot of innovative stuff that we're doing, some ideas I have about, and I think what I really want to talk about is there's a lot of noise and conversation around mainframe or LLM AI, but what are the real life applications and the impact? So what interests me and what I talk about a lot on LinkedIn is how now that we've figured this out and there are a lot of open source models out there, but what's how is it going to change our everyday lives in industries, right? In entertainment, in media, in finance. So that's where I will have a lot of conversation on LinkedIn. Instagram is my balance. It's my personal life. So you will see a lot more of my outdoor activities and my adventures on Instagram. So these are the two that I actively use. Not the best on X or formerly Twitter, because I think founders we love being opinionated, and you'll start seeing X being used for me to vent out or share opinions and judgments. So I try to stay away from that downward spiral. That's my experience. So very less on X and Twitter, but more on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Yeah, I haven't got out of that downward spiral yet. It's always interesting, right? Like you start super good, super nice on X, but eventually you turn into this witch.
But
So that
Charles,
was Bhavik Vasa and Charles Cormier for another CEO Wisdom